For me, going all Khorne infantry into Tzeentch seems very risky, but today Trader GG is going to be trying it against World Beater. We've got World Beater coming in with the forces of Tzeentch, of course, and all infantry on the side of Khorne. For Trader GG here, he's got a front line of Khorne warriors with shields, second line of bloodletters, and some exalted bloodletters mixed in. Of course, he's got the Herald and two Blood Reapers on foot with relatively cheap kits. These guys should be very cost effective. Let's see in terms of abilities here what they've got on the table. That Locus of Abjuration will help. That spell resistance in particular is very good against Tzeentch, given that they do rely on that AoE magic damage in many cases to deal with your infantry. Speaking of which, Exalted Lord of Change is going to plop some blue fire right away. We've got some Flamers, Forsaken in the front line, mixed with some Spawns, some Blue Horrors there in the back, and some Furies. Although I am a huge fan of Tzeentch Forsaken, this is one matchup where they will struggle pretty badly. The Bloodletters, Exalted Bloodletters, just cut them to ribbons very cost effectively, even though they do trade okay against the basic Bloodletters. It will just, in general, be a tough engagement for them, but the Flamers making their presence felt, just roasting this front line as they advance up the hill here. Quick hit and run by Big Bird as well to try and disrupt these Chaos Warriors, and this is definitely the right call. In fact, I think Big Bird, considering the lack of mobility here, Big Bird could be aggressively cycle charging the entire time, right? Because there's nothing for Khorne to punish him from doing so. So, like, even right now, diving on these Khorne Warriors quick, getting back through your own forces would be pretty beneficial, but still, let's watch as the fire saturates in here. On the Warriors of Khorne there, with that Locus of Abjuration, they're all going to take less damage. I think that Magic Missile did relatively little to those characters. And the shields also and the armor will mean that the Blue Horror shots are not going to be quite as efficient against those regular warriors, but still, the Bloodletters are saturating in there now. And the thing about this all-infantry force from Khorne is that everything here is very scary. And Tzeentch didn't take a lot of mobility of their own to try and hold back these forces. You can see, although fire is being poured into the center there, got Spawn of Tzeentch detaching to the flank to help deal with those Bloodletters and the Forsaken. That should be a pretty good engagement, but still, those Furies will likely be sacrificed in the meantime. Furies, I don't know if I love Furies in this matchup, to be honest. I don't really know. I mean, thinking through targets, they don't really trade well with a lot of Khorne units, like maybe against the basic 400 Warhounds, but yeah, I just don't see them being wildly useful in this particular matchup, although here they're going to come provide a little bit of rear charge. One reason why I don't completely love them is they do count as infantry-sized models, so against the Bloodletters, they're going to get absolutely shredded. Just, you know, funny-shaped skulls taken, no doubt. But still, Khorne is taking quite a bit of damage from all this Overwatch fire. We've still got Flamers online. There's no real Khorne mobility to pressure them, so as long as the Tzeentch player keeps them away from any melee units, they should be able to use up all of their ammunition and get quite a bit of value back. That Bloodletter on the flank getting worn down as expected. Chaos Warriors in the center, though, holding out pretty well, and this Bloodletter push, despite the fact they've taken some pretty substantial damage. Horn of Khorne active, gives some extra melee attack. They just mop those Tzeentch Forsaken, no problem, and are now moving into the back lines. Thankfully, Horrors have used up most of their ammo, if not all of it in some cases, so they can now move into melee, act as kind of a little bit of a buffer for the Flamers to continue to fire here. Flamers are going to be the key to success, I think, for finishing off the rest of the Khorne infantry here, although the Spawn definitely, with their armor sundering, will help, especially against the Warriors, but even against the Bloodletters, putting them down to 0 armor means that everything will make more consistent contact with them. But yeah, I mean, you can see there, only down to 55 armor between the sundered armor and the Kindle Flame stacking there. So pretty strong. Forsaken are able to clean up those Chaos Warriors, no problem when they're down to 55 armor. Meanwhile, we've still got some ammo on these Blue Horrors, but they're unlikely to be able to use it. This is also pretty bad here. These Exalted Bloodletters are able to catch up with the Flamers of Tzeentch. Flamers, 50 speed, should be able to stay out in front pretty consistently, but just a small slip up in micro there as they attempt to now maneuver through their own Blue Horrors to get to safety, which they should be able to do. Big Bird also, again, hasn't been cycle charging maybe quite as aggressively as I would have liked, especially into the Chaos Warriors. I can understand not wanting to dive on these Exalted Bloodletters, and, you know, even the regular Bloodletters, their offensive output is high enough that it's just tough to, you know, justify landing on them, even maybe if you have full barrier and you can get out relatively quickly without taking too much real HP damage. But here, Flamers do manage to draw a bead and just shred, just absolutely barbecue what's left of those Bloodletters. They now have a few more shots to push into this unit of Chaos Warriors, but again, probably should be going after the Exalted Bloodletters. They switch their final volley to do just that, a little bit of extra blue fire or pink fire there. Of course, the spell resistance helps slightly, but those Exalted Bloodletters still taking quite a bit of damage. The Flamers finish off their ammo and move into melee with Big Bird on the rear charge, but look at the way their barrier and then their HP just gets shredded so fast, as we've seen in previous videos. Even a handful of Exalted Bloodletters, they've got a third of their unit models still alive, and they are still just absolutely wiping the floor with the funny looking mouths and faces of these Flamers. Oh man, such brutality. Now it's Big Bird. He is going to be able to probably finish off the Herald of Khorne. Herald's only got about 200 HP left. Quickly moves into banishment territory. He's going to go down. Well, that's definitely rough. Forces of Khorne losing their lord is going to affect their leadership, but of course, most of them being demons at this point, they will not rout. They will not, you know, they have to basically disintegrate, and especially the heroes with their relatively high leadership, it's very tough to get them to even start taking that extra damage. Speaking of damage, the Exalted Lord of Change just absolutely taking it. That is a lot of damage. Drops one more Spiteful Army Bombardment there. The army ability Bombardment, not the big one, but the little one, which does quite a bit of damage to this melee blob. We've got these Exalted Bloodletters unstable. They are quickly getting banished, disintegrating, but also continuing to just chop Forsaken heads while they're waiting. Here comes Big Bird, a little bit of a janky land there. Didn't really get a good charge animation, but he's trying to go after the Blood Reapers at this point to finish them off. 2v1 here, though. This is not going to go well at all. Even with him being able to finish off one Blood Reaper, he's still going to be taking hits in the rear from the other, and he's still got his clutch unit of Chaos Warriors. All of the Bloodletters are actually gone at this point. Big Bird just barely not having enough left in the tank to finish things off, as the Bloodletter 1 is actually disintegrating, still getting hits on him, just slicing his ankles right there. Big Bird doesn't like that at all. Very quickly going to approach. Army losses. Yep, you can see army losses do trigger there, and it's going to be a very tight victory for Khorne, the closest of victories, you might say. Awesome stuff, though. Big thanks to I believe it was World Beater, yeah, that sent this one in from Tzeentch's perspective. Nice to send in a loss. Not every day that happens, but I definitely do appreciate when it does. In terms of his army, as expected, I mean, the Forsaken kind of just got mauled in melee by a clearly superior Bloodletters, and especially the Exalted Bloodletters. Like, the regular Bloodletters don't even actually trade that well. It's the Exalteds that come in and just wipe the floor with absolutely everything. The heroes, all pretty cost-effective, too. I'd have to check. I want to say they cost... Do they cost under 1,000? We'll look at that in just a minute here, what the cost of these actual heroes is with just the Locust of Abjuration there. The Shielded Chaos Warriors, also a little bit of a mixed bag, but generally do okay. Flamers on the side of Tzeentch get quite a bit of their value. The Spawn I expected actually to get a little bit more, which is interesting. A lot of damage value on the Exalted Lord of Change as well, although I do feel, like I said, especially a little bit of better early game cycle charge on specifically the Chaos Warrior units, I think probably could have tilted the battle in Tzeentch's favor, given especially what happened in the end game there with just a couple of tattered Chaos Warriors, basically all that were standing in the way of Tzeentch, Tzeentch's Big Bird and those two Blood Reapers there. So without those Chaos Warriors, probably Big Bird's able to finish that one off. So maybe the cycle charge in the early game does that extra HP damage that you need. Anyway, it's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts, but basically just my point is, could have had that extra damage be done at another point in time. Blue Horrors, generally very cost-effective, pretty easy to pay for themselves, but let's just go ahead and check. The Blood Reaper as a hero, honestly, is super cost-effective, given how strong his stats are for the cost, and I may end up kind of after the fact deciding to name the title of the video after this guy. But 800 base cost basically means he's like a single entity Bloodletter for the same cost that you can then buy upgrades for, right? He's got more armor. Obviously, as a single entity, he's not going to lose killing power. Significantly less HP, though, only 4,000 HP. as a foot character is really not all that much, especially considering he only has 35 melee defense and 40 armor, less than 400 weapon strength, but still great AP with anti-infantry. Puts him almost up to 400 with the anti-infantry bonus. 45 charge, also pretty solid, but with just Locus of Abjuration, that's 950. That's not too bad, considering that extra spell resistance can help keep the rest of your army alive, certainly against Tzeentch. I do think that bringing a couple of these guys in place of where you'd normally bring maybe like a dual hand weapon warrior or another unit of bloodletters seems pretty solid. And then the Herald, I believe, just had his 2 melee attack buffs, which also makes him 1200 points, super cost effective. Generally, I've found these guys to be awesome on foot or on the Juggernauts is where I've had the most success. I haven't had a ton of success with the Blood Thrones, but I think that's mostly because collision attacks are bugged. Hopefully that gets fixed in the 1.1 update, and we'll see like these guys and the other chariots like the Gore Beasts becoming more effective. But that's all for the future. For today, that's all. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell, all that jazz. Thanks again. See you next time.